In just a few seconds, we'll start this webinar and where our wonderful guest speaker, Kath Pay, the founder and CEO of Holistic Email Marketing, will take you through the process of optimizing your marketing automation program for success. But before we start, hopefully you had the time to sit down, relax, adjust your volume, and grab a coffee. So let me just take you through a few housekeeping things before we start the actual webinar. So today's meeting will take about 45 minutes and you'll get a dedicated Q&A session afterwards. So Kath Pay will be answering all your questions after the webinar, but of course you're welcome to ask any questions during the presentation. We'll try to answer them in the chat pod you can see in the bottom left corner of your window. Of course, today's webinar will also be recorded. So after the webinar, you'll get an email from us. Probably tomorrow, you'll get an email with the webinar recording, the slides as well, and an additional 10% off discount code for a lifetime for all the new accounts that you'll be setting up with GetResponse after this webinar. And of course, I'd like to invite you to use the dedicated hashtag we've got for today. It's hashtag GR Automation Hub. So you can tell all your colleagues and friends that you're here with us and that you're learning new skills and learning how to optimize your email, your marketing automation campaigns today. So let's get started. Hopefully you'll have a great time, and I'm passing the microphone now on to Kath. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Michael. Really happy to be here today. And just a bit of an intro slide as to who I am and why I'm here. I've been doing email marketing now for actually over 18 years. A bit scary, but there you go. And so I have been, in email marketing basically from the beginning. I've seen lots and lots of changes. And one of the things that one of the reasons why I'm still here is because it's a brilliant channel, absolutely brilliant, and I'm incredibly passionate about it. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about it at the moment is the marketing automation side of things. And that's what we're going to be looking at today, and how we can be actually increasing conversions, how we can be testing and optimizing these marketing automation programs so that we can be increasing our results. And I'm going to show you a little trick as well, so we can not only just be increasing our results, but we can also be finding out something about our audience at the same time. So just to kick off, here's a couple of my clients, and one of the reasons why I'm here is because I get to do lots of really fun things with some really great brands. And of course all of that adds to lots of experience, and half the time, this is what it's all about, testing, optimization. It's experimenting, but I'm going to teach you today how you can be experimenting strategically, not ad hocly, and that's the big key factor. Now, we're all very familiar with marketing automation. That's why we're here. So marketing automation, this is an example for a SaaS product, so B2B SaaS product. And this could be, the life cycle automation program that they may have in place. Most of this is based upon an action or an inaction that a customer has taken. Now, within this one, of course, you would have more. So you could have, that trial program. That's an automation program in itself. Customer onboarding, that also would be a program within itself, which of course could lead to another program. So we're not here to actually be talking about how all of this works, but this is just really just to sort of set the placeholder here of these are the kind of programs that we're looking at optimizing and improving. Because one of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you is why we want to be testing these, right? Why we're all talking about testing all the time. And I just read an article, interestingly enough, because I always ask the same question. This article always says, why is everyone always talking about testing if no one actually ever does that? And, I kind of ask the same questions. Why is that so? And one of the key things that we have to hold on to is that our opinions are worthless. And that's one of the reasons why we have to test. Just because we consider this to be so does not mean it is. we're only going to find out the answer once we test, and we're actually putting that question out to our audience, and we're getting their vote, and they're voting with their clicks, right? That's what we're essentially doing. It's like we're sending this, a survey out all the time, but we're not actually asking them to mindfully give us the actual answer, but we're asking them with our A/B split test, what version do they like, right? So what is resonating with them? So we have to understand that our opinions are worthless, and so are our marketing directors, so are our CEOs and our managing directors and everyone like that. So this is the main reason why we need to be testing, because it doesn't matter how well you know your audience, how well you know your product, it still does not guarantee that you will know what the answer is until you actually perform that test. Now, e-consultancy, in the conversion rate optimization report, what they did was they actually asked they asked this question of marketers, what areas do you test? And even though email is definitely by far the easiest channel to test, most of the ESPs out there, the email service providers, the marketing automation providers out there, such as GetResponse, they all provide incredibly easy to use testing tools within their systems. Even though email is the easiest channel to test, only 63% are testing it. Now, I want to qualify that, because you might go, 63%, that's totally awesome. It wasn't a specific question, as in how often or anything like that. So that 63% is a very good chance, in fact I know this to be true, that 63% are ad hoc, occasional, random subject line tests and nothing much more than that. All right, so if we're actually talking about testing it to get legitimate results, and we're doing a strategic test, and I'm going to explain the difference down the track, then it doesn't really happen within email as yet. Now, the next question they asked, how do you rate the following channels in terms of return of investment? This is a different study altogether. This is their email marketing census. And the interesting factor is that email delivers year on year, it'll either deliver the highest return on investment according to this survey, or the second highest return on investment. So even though email is the easiest channel to be testing, and it delivers the highest return on investment, we are still not putting the energy, the effort, the budget, the resources into testing our emails. And one of the things that we need to be understanding is that, this is another report here, the DMA National Client Email Report 2015, they actually found out that the automatically triggered campaigns based on the life cycle, which is what I just showed you that graph of, or that chart of, it counts for 12% of emails being sent out, or on customer activity, 18%, together account for £3 of every £10 in email marketing revenue. So what we're talking about here, which is really, really interesting, is that it's these marketing automation programs that we've just looked at, we're just talking about, and what we're here to talk about today, are delivering revenue. And they're delivering revenue very easily. And do you know what? The scary thing is they're delivering this revenue without us doing much optimization. And I think this is probably our biggest problem when it comes to testing. Email delivers the results, even if we don't test. Okay? I've just got that out there. This is true. You are still going to get fantastic results, even if you don't test. Okay? So that doesn't give us much motivation for doing so. However, the thing to remember is that, even a 3% uplift can actually deliver a huge incremental improvement on revenue. So what we're wanting to do is we need to understand that, yes, the results are good, even with us not testing, but don't we want them to be better? Don't we want them to be fantastic? If we can improve the results of our campaign so we can get more budget, if we can get more budget, then we can get more resources. And then we can be doing more exciting things and more fun things, and we can be, pushing even further and so on. It all builds up together. So we don't want to just settle for being good and for getting good results. We really want to go out there and try and get the best results that we possibly can. And that's where testing comes in. Now, one of the reasons why we want to be testing these ongoing automated programs is because they are ongoing. They are just running in the background. They are perpetually happening, which means and we've just seen, they bring in the revenue. They're incredibly important. Often we sort of have this set and forget mentality because it's taken us so much effort just to get that program happening. Oh. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how you can, when you're setting that program up, how you can be setting up the test alongside of it, and it will become part of it. It will become a habit. It will become the part of the process. And you won't even be thinking about it. You won't be questioning it. It will just become the process. We can be also finding out, therefore, not only what version and what program, what offer, what subject line, what call to action, what copy makes your customers tick, right? But we can also be finding out more about our audience. Okay, so we're going to not just find out what elements make them tick, but we're going to be discovering, we're going to be turning that into a discovery and finding out, because then we can start to use that elsewhere, which I'll show you more about that later on too. So because we're going to be setting this test up essentially as a perpetual test, that's the whole idea, that's the principle of it. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the aggregation of marginal gains, and how that works is that it just says here, it means taking the 1% of everything that you do, finding a 1% margin for improvement in everything that you do. And this is what the British cycling team used to win the Beijing and also the London Olympics. And so it wasn't a huge, oh my goodness, we've just changed, we've just revolutionized everything and here's a 30% uplift. It's nothing as stunning as that. It's just an incremental increase. But what we do is, because we are learning, and we can actually gain those learnings and we can implement those learnings into the campaign, and in this case the marketing automation program, then what we're doing is we're then building upon it continually, so that we end up having a nice little building block, so that over a period of time, although maybe we've got a welcome program and we've just been, we've set up one test and we got a nice 3% improvement. Well, we actually took that learning and we've implemented that into the program. And now we're testing something else, we're refining it. We've got another 3%. So within a couple of months, we've got a 6% increase. And this is what we want to do, is just continually be optimizing it. We don't ever want to be letting our valuable marketing automation program sit static. Because the bottom line is that our consumers don't stop changing. So our programs can't stop changing. We have to understand that we need to be listening to our consumers as well. So, just keep that in mind. A little question here, it's something for you to think about. Who makes up your email database? I've got a quick little answer. Your target market, right? We think about it, it's our prospects, it's our first-time buyers, it's our second-time buyers, it's our loyal customers, it's our lapsing customers, and it's our lost customers. So if we're talking about that, these are all people who have either potentially, or have got the potential of actually buying from us, or actually have purchased from us at some stage. We can start to use our database to be learning about what makes them tick. And we use our database via the valuable push channel to find out what resonates with them. And then what we can end up doing is we can start to roll out those results across other channels. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this. But I've just packaged this up nice and quickly for you if you wanted to do any tweeting. So your database is your target market. Use email as your primary testing tool and roll out findings to other channels. This is one of the principles that we can be using. This isn't the main emphasis of what I'm talking about today. This is the bonus. And this is an incredibly valuable bonus as well. So just keep that in mind. And here's some examples. So a different wording test. We've got the first version, first name, test, track, increase your profit, start today. And version B, first name, start tracking and optimizing your business today. Now, we might just think, okay, well, that's a subject line, that's fine. That's great. We can use that for a one-off, not a problem. Why don't we, and the winner in this particular one was B, had a higher open rate with a 95% confidence level. Why don't we start to sort of think, well, okay, we've actually just done a survey of our audience and we've asked which title do you like best? We can be applying that to our PPC ads, our titles in our blogs and our product pages, our subheadings, banner ads, all the rest of it. So this is where I'm just asking you to sort of start to think and start to realize the value of actually testing within email. And how can you be not only finding out what is going to give you the immediate increased uplift, version A or version B, to give you better, better conversions and revenue for that particular program, but also how can we be passing that on to other parts of our marketing as well. Here's another example. Test which image achieves the best conversion, product display or model wearing garment. And we can be applying that to your homepage, your product pages, your banner ads, and all the rest of it. Another one is subject line, descriptive versus benefits. Which one's best, for your product page? You could be using this for your product page. You've got increased customer retention by 8% in a single month versus SaaS billing as a marketing asset. So one's a benefit and one's a feature as such, or a description. And in this particular case, the benefit won. So if we tested that many times, a couple of times, 3 times or so, and we keep on coming up with the benefit as the driver, that's the winning one, then we know we want to be leading. We want to be leading with benefits in our onboarding programs. Let's go and lead that with a benefit. Let's go and lead that on our website, benefits, rather than the features and the descriptions and everything. So we can also ask them what call to action, 35% off, enter the sale now, versus view the exclusive collection for sale. And B, in this particular case, was the winner. You can apply that everywhere. This isn't just limited to a call to action. If we actually have a look, this is an offer that they've tested via a call to action. That 35% off, enter the sale now. Yes, that is a call to action, but it's also the offer that they've tested versus view the exclusive collection for sale. So we're talking about different motivations here, and I'm going to talk more about the motivation side of things later on. But we can be applying this everywhere. So what can we test? Okay, we've had a look at some of the reasons why we want to be testing. What can we test? And I want you to make sure that you're sitting down. And we're talking specifically here about testing for marketing automation. If I was to expand it out just to email itself, that would be even more. But if we're talking about marketing automation programs, these are some. And again, this isn't everything. I've tried not to go overboard, but here are some really key factors that you can be testing. And just because you can test them, though, doesn't mean that you should. You've got to remember, everything that you're testing, it has to be serving the purpose of helping you to increase your conversions. And all of that is going to be mapping back to your objective. So what is your objective? And this is the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about. Which of these is going to help me most directly, that I believe, to help me to achieve my objective? Okay. Now, some of this you might know until later on, until you've actually a bit more experienced in testing. But here, let's go through a couple of them. Number of the emails within the sequence, or the latency between emails in the sequence. Price points, discount in value, design, layout, tone of voice. Bundles, should you be bundling up your products? From field, subject lines, personalization, number of links, landing page, long or short copy. Like I said, this is just touching on a few of them. There's a lot more. So, one of the things that some of my clients have always said, we've tested everything. And I'm like, seriously? You've tested everything? There's no end to what you can be testing. It's just whether you are testing the right factor for that particular objective and for that particular program or email. Okay, so You need to be strategic about this. You need to be thinking about it. Don't be random. Don't just jump on something and do it because you're ticking off a box. Great, I've done a test. That's the last kind of test that you'd want to be performing. You want to make sure it counts and that it matters. So what you can also be doing, as I was saying, is set up a permanent testing stream. Now, this is the beauty about it. Once you've actually set them up, because we're talking about an automated program, we're talking about actually creating those flows and everything. You've set the structure up. All you would do then is amend or replace or alter the creative in some way. So whether it's the subject line or the call to action or the copy or the imagery or whatever it is that you are testing, the offer, that's what you'll be amending. But the actual principle of the workflow will still stay the same. Now, to do that, what you want to do is basically set this up. So instead of it having a regular single stream, what you want to do is you want to be setting up the two streams. And in this particular case, they've got an incentivized stream versus an education stream. So their hypothesis here is that incentivization is going to deliver higher conversions than educating, right? So that's the path that they've gone along, and they've gone through everyone in that top row there. That there is all incentivized. That's the objective, and that's the messaging and everything. And then the bottom one is education. Now, what they might do is they might end up finding that yes, their hypothesis is correct, and they've actually said incentivized stream actually delivers the higher conversions. So that now is going to become the control. And we have now put that in. We're leaving that where it is because it's working, it's great. But we want to improve. We want to be testing something else now. So we will come up with another hypothesis then in order to be improving upon that. And it might be testing the subject lines, it might be testing the call to action, it might be testing what kind of incentive that they're using, so in order to increase the conversions. And so therefore the B stream, that lower stream there, that's the one that's going to be changed accordingly. So how to test your automated programs. So what we just looked at there, that's in a nutshell, that's how we're going to be implementing it within the actual system and how we're going to be putting that together. But there still is the whole theory on actually testing. And that's where I think a lot of people go astray, because we talk a lot about testing, but no one actually really says how you do it. And that's why we have a lot of ad hoc campaigns, ad hoc testing campaigns going out. And when you do an ad hoc campaign, and I've got a definition of what an ad hoc campaign is, but essentially it's a campaign that, a testing campaign that what we've gone and done is we've said, let's test this, and what about this, right? So we've chosen a call to action, and that call to action could be, let's buy now versus check it out, right? There's no rhyme or reason behind it. We've just simply put those there. And we haven't thought about it, we haven't planned it, we haven't done any research into it. There is no real reasoning behind it. We're literally just testing one call to action against another call to action. And when we're doing ad hoc campaigns or testing campaigns like that, that's when we're least likely to actually get results, right? Statistically confident results, because we haven't put enough thought into the process. We haven't put enough preparation into it to actually get those statistically confident results, because they are ad hoc. So what we want to do is we want to be creating a methodology. And this is how we can be testing those automated programs, to be not only testing to see which version is going to give us an uplift, but also which is the immediate. That's the immediate win, and we're going to find out which version of that stream of that automated program is going to give us the highest conversions, the biggest revenue, the biggest downloads of white papers, whatever our objective is. But we're also going to be finding out something about the motivations, what motivates them, so that we can then use those learnings elsewhere within our marketing. Because remembering, our audience is our target market, and that's who we're actually testing. So in this particular one, they're testing different motivational factors using subject lines. Now, this is an interesting factor. See how I've worded that. They're not testing subject lines, right? But they're actually testing, the driver here is actually to test the different motivational factors, and they're using subject lines to be delivering that test. Now, that's a really crucial thing to hang on to. So here, I'm not going to read the subject lines, but I'm actually going to read the motivational factors, which are in red. So number 1, value exchange and incentive. Number 2, value exchange, no incentive. Number 3, newsworthy incentive. Number 4, curiosity. 5, benefits. 6, fear. So we can see they're all different motivations. You know, what's the driver? What are we tapping into here? What's the person's motivation for opening up this email? And we can see that the fear factor actually was the winner in this case. It drove 125% more unique click-throughs. This was a test that was performed by Marketing Experiments. Now, of course, we wouldn't want to be using fear all the time, but what does this tell us about our audience? It says, okay, great. So we have got something up our sleeve that when we are wanting to be using fear, we know that it is a motivator that can be used successfully. And this is what we want to be testing. So we want to be finding out more about them. So again, you can tweak this. Gain more than short-term wins by testing. Use a methodology. Find out what makes your audience tick. Now, this to me is crucial. We all want to know more about our audience. We all want to know more about what makes them tick, what motivates them, what gets them into, making decisions. So this is one of the things that we can be doing. Now, one of the key things too is often when we're testing, we tend to be testing based upon, we tend to use a metric which is kind of logical more than actual a true success metric. So one of the things you have to remember is what you measure is based upon what you want to achieve, i.e. we're mapping back to the objective again. So if our objective is sales, then what we want to be doing when we're testing is we want to be measuring our success of that test based upon sales. If we're being rewarded upon open rates, and that's all we're being rewarded on, then we will test based upon open rates, and that will be our success metric. So often what happens is that we are testing, and because subject lines are so crucial, you know, there's 3 steps to conversion within email marketing. The first step is to get them to open. We're converting them to open up the email. The second step is to convert them to click within the body of the email. The third step is to convert them to the final objective on the landing page. So there's 3 clear steps. If we don't achieve the first step, which is getting them to open the email, which we tend to use the subject line mainly for, the second and the third step won't happen. Now, therefore, one of the reasons why we tend to test subject lines more than anything else is for that reason. But what we tend to do is we tend to be basing the results of our subject line test upon open rates rather than conversions. Again, if you are being rewarded upon open rates, then that's fine. But if you're actually being rewarded upon conversions, then you need to be testing it upon conversions, because that is your success metric. So here's an example. I've been using this one for years. I've got hundreds of other examples like this, but it's very, very clear, and I love using it because it just the light globe happens. You know, the light bulb little moment happens with this one. So measure the correct metric. Subject line: win the pampering prize of a lifetime with $10,000. This was a test that Beat performed for subject lines. And their end goal, the objective, was to actually get the customer or the recipient to enter a competition. And what we can see is we can see that the open rate, okay, The open rate of the first email is the highest open rate. Yet if we have a look at the conversion rate, it's actually the lowest conversion rate. The bottom subject line, the fourth one, it has the lowest open rate, yet it has the highest conversion rate. Now, I could literally talk to you for half an hour about this particular test. I don't have half an hour to do that. The big takeaway here that I would like you to sort of be latching onto is simply understanding that when we're doing our test, we want to be measuring the open rate, we want to be measuring the click rate. Yes, they're great indicators. But at the end of the day, you need to be measuring the success that matters to you. And in this case, it was how many people entered the competition. We can see just because people are opening doesn't necessarily mean they're going to click, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to convert. So this is why it's so important. Open rate does, even though it seems to be logical, assuming that the more people open the email, the more people will convert. It's logic, right? But it's not true. And like I said, I've got hundreds of other examples that I could show you that will verify that as well. So that's the kind of thing you need to make sure. Just make sure when you're measuring this, you have already identified your success metric. Now, I mentioned before statistical validity. That's a good word. And this is talking about the statistical confidence. And there's a URL here. There's a few of them out there. Make sure that you're doing this to make sure that you are implementing a valid result, because you don't want to be implementing an invalid result because it could be leading you completely and utterly astray. So this is really talking about how, some of these tools will also give you the sample size that you need to be using as well in order to be able to gain a statistical, confident result. And if you get bad results, do you know what? It doesn't matter. Seriously. And when I'm talking about a bad result, that you can only ever get a bad result if you've actually formed a hypothesis. And forming a hypothesis is brilliant. So you've done a great job right from the very beginning. You've got a hypothesis. And that hypothesis is saying, I think that A will deliver better results than B because of this. Okay? So that is fantastic. Now, you might be wrong. A did not actually deliver the better result. B did. But that doesn't matter because you have still learnt something from that. That is still an incredibly valuable lesson, a valid result. So, don't be disheartened, don't be discouraged. Like I said, all that is doing is actually proving to you why you should be testing, because you didn't get it right, because that was your assumption. And that's what a hypothesis is basically making an assumption. Generally, it's an informed assumption, but so don't fret if you get it wrong. Thomas Edison said, I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. So just stick that up on your wall. Okay, so some essentials for testing. Here's that definition for ad hoc testing that I was telling you about. Random, occasional test of a factor with the aim of determining which version delivers the best result. No methodology or hypothesis is used in this process. So it's literally, let's just try and test this against this, right? And that's it. That's as easy and as quick as it can be thought out. Okay, that's ad hoc testing. The majority of email testing that's out there now is ad hoc testing. Strategic testing, on the other hand, is a regularly performed test using a hypothesis and methodology with the twofold aim of not only finding out which version delivers the best result, that's a short-term win, but also aims to discover insights about the audience, and that's a longitudinal win. Okay, so we're not just finding out which one's going to give us better results here and now, but we're also discovering more about what makes our audience tick. So one of the things you need to do when you're testing is have a desire to learn about your audience, as we just discussed. And that's going to be the motivator. That's going to be one of the big drives, and that's also going to be one of the key things that you're going to be using to help you with your hypothesis. And then we need to be identifying what question are you trying to answer. And generally, it's a case of How do I get more conversions? Or maybe there's a pain, maybe there's a challenge, maybe it's it could be a case being brought upon, how can we get more two-time purchases? We've got a database full of one-time purchases. We need to have more customers who will be purchasing multiple times. Okay, well, that's a pain. So that's a great question to be testing and finding out how you can actually. So that's a very strategic test there. It's not just a tactical, what's going to actually give us greater conversions in the short run, but also in the long term. And the third thing we want to do is create a hypothesis. And that hypothesis needs to center around three main things. The first thing being a presumed problem. And the second is the proposed solution. And the third is the anticipated result. And I've also thrown in and reason why, so that could actually be four. Because that last one, that's crucial. And I resolve that with saying because. So whenever I write my hypothesis, I will actually say, I will write the hypothesis and then I'll say because. And that because is the learning that we're going to be gaining from that particular test. So a hypothesis can be proved or disproved. It pretty much says that I think by making this change, it's going to cause this effect. And therefore, based upon your results, you should be able to say, this is true, or this is false. And then because, okay? So that because is the key factor. So when you use a hypothesis to test email, you're not restricted to testing the same element. The hypothesis stands. And that's the beauty about having a hypothesis. Because we're actually testing more than just the actual element. Remember I told you about that subject line test? We were testing that motivational factor, weren't we? And so therefore, and we were using the subject line to test it. We could have also used the call to action to test that same hypothesis. We could also have used the copy within the email itself as well. So this is the kind of thing we want to be doing, is we've got a solid hypothesis and then we just want to determine what element we're going to be using to test it in, rather than deciding what element and what are we going to test in that element. It's a bit of a mind change. So let's just have a little look at some hypotheses that you can use within email. And then we're going to look to see, can we use the results of these elsewhere. So an emotional question in the subject line will generate more sales than a directive statement. Can that be used elsewhere? Absolutely. Absolutely. That emotional question, so regardless whether it's in the subject line or not, that emotional question can be used everywhere, okay? Because also what it's doing though is that result, that therefore is saying to us, okay, so the audience is actually relating to or being motivated by, if this hypothesis proved to be true, emotional copy rather than directive copy. That's the bottom line. That's the big cause. So an emotional call to action will generate more sales than a pragmatic call to action. Exactly the same, but we're talking call to actions now instead of subject lines. Double loyalty points will generate more sales than 15% loyalty points. Yes, of course we can use that everywhere. We can use that throughout the website, in all of our offers, even in our offline printing, in our PPC ads, you name it, social media, it's everywhere. 5 items showing that you may like dynamic pod within your email will generate more sales than 3 items. Absolutely. If that proved to be true, yes. We can also be carrying that through to the product page itself as well. An emotive image of a person smiling and wearing an outfit will generate more sales than the image displaying the outfit, right? Just sort of being laid out. Yes, we can be using that again throughout the website, throughout social media and everywhere. Image 2, looking at the call to action, will generate more sales than image 1, which is just looking directly at the copy. Yes, because that then is giving us an idea of where we should be positioning our images so that they're supporting the call to action rather than directing their attention to the copy. They're directing the attention to the actual action to be performed, which is the call to action. So we can start to see that there's a lot more to testing than you possibly could be thinking about. And this is what makes testing fantastic. It makes it exciting, it makes it challenging, but it will bring in the rewards. And then at the bottom line is, as I was saying before, I showed you that other example. When we're talking about marketing automation programs, right, these are so valuable. We need to be building this into the actual program itself so that every single program that you have has got a testing stream. And you're perpetually monitoring them and checking them. And once you've actually got the results in, you've determined which stream is actually delivering the best results according to your objective, then you go and work out another plan. Ideally, you already have a plan in place, or maybe the results of that test might actually, beckon another test, which is using that aggregation of marginal gain and refining the answers even further. So I hope that makes sense. What I've gone and done here is, like I was saying, when you're doing this, the idea here is with this particular one is to be having a test plan in place. You can't just be randomly doing this. You need to have it written down. You need to have a record. You need to be going back and checking. You need to have it planned and being strategic and everything. So here's just a snapshot of a test plan that you possibly could be using, or something like this. You can use your own. I just use Excel. I don't have any particular fancy software and like that. I just use Excel. It works a treat. And then some of the metrics and fields you want to be including, of course, are going to be depending upon your objective, right? But here are some ones that you may want to be including. Total sent, open rate, click to open rate, products purchased, conversion rate, average order value, statistical confidence rate, your conclusion, your recommendation. If it's downloads, well then how many downloads in that white paper, and if it's attending an event, it would be how many people registered, and then how many people attended. Just customize it to suit the actual objective of that particular test. But we need to understand it's just a continuous cycle, right? Continuous cycle of learning. You have your hypothesis, you test in email, you analyze and learn from it. You can apply those results into the appropriate channels, including, of course, your marketing automation programs. And then back there again, hypothesis, and just keep on going around and around. You never, ever stop testing. Because once you stop testing, then that's when things get a bit static. You want to be continually learning about your audience. So try and try and do that, and get excited about it, because it seriously is it will bring in huge increases. Not necessarily, like I said, that oh, you've performed one test and there's a 30% uplift. That would be unbelievably wonderful. And I don't want to set your expectations that it will be like that. But if you can get a statistical confidence, improvement of even just an increase of a couple of percentage, it's worth it. And then, like I said, use those building blocks and keep improving on it. So some rules, as I was saying before, don't test for the sake of testing. Don't do it just so you can tick off a box and say, yep, I've done that, right? Start to care about it and be passionate about it, because that's going to make the big difference as to whether the test is a success or not. Try not to just focus on those one-off results, those immediate wins, but focus on the longitudinal gains also that you can be rolling out elsewhere. And then, of course, be sure to measure the correct metric. Now, that's it for the actual webinar itself, and I am perfectly on time. I'm actually quite impressed. So we are now at answering some questions. So fantastic. Thanks for that, Michael. Now, I've got a couple of questions here in front of me. So what I'm going to do is answer a couple of them. So Chris says, I tried to test, but my list was too small, which makes it harder to grow the list, doesn't it? Which is ironic. It is, but you know what? It doesn't mean that you can't test. It, like you said, you can test. It's not, you're not going to be comparing absolutely apples with apples, but you can still be testing. And this is where what I was saying, if you can start to be testing the motivations rather than just the A and B, because the A and B, that's really where you're testing the apples with apples. But the motivations you can be testing as well. So you might want to do the newsletter if you've got a small list or something. Depending on how small the list is, if it's really small, you might want to be testing one factor one time, another factor another time. If it's a bit bigger, then you can split it in half. You can go 50-50, right? And then once they get to a bigger size, then you can be doing 10%, and then 10% version A, 10% version B, and then you can roll out the results to the remaining 80%. But so this is the kind of thing when you always have that, statistical calculator at hand, because that's going to give you the idea of whether you can be, what sample size you can be using, and whether the results are actually significantly statistical or not. Yeah, or the other way around, statistically significant. Okay. Janice says, how much of an investment to receive the automation program using emails? I'm not 100% sure of exactly what question you're asking. I don't know if you're just asking about the automation program itself, how much of an investment it is to actually create one, or whether it's testing, but I'm thinking it's the first one. Yes, setting up a marketing automation program, it is an investment. Absolutely, it's an investment, not just of money, but also of time. But it's well worth it. As you can see, you can go and do any sort of search on, on the revenue and everything that could be achieved from your marketing automation program. Contact Get Response. They've got some fantastic statistics, and I'll be more than happy to help you, understand the value of having an automated program working behind the scenes, converting people all the time. So it is an investment, but that's it. It's an investment. It's not an expense. It's not a cost. It's an investment. An investment, we know that an investment pays back, and that's how we need to be looking at it. And really, the hard bit is actually logistically making it happen. Right? Do you need to get in an outside consultant? Do you need to use your ESP's agency? Do you need to, employ internally a couple of extra people to make this kind of thing happen? That's the kind of thing that you need to be looking at. But yes, you've got the right approach, looking at it that it is an investment. And it's not necessarily, it depends on, seriously, it depends on the system that you use. Get Response is a very, very reasonable investment. So, yes. So Ronald, okay, he's just going to ask, how easy or difficult is it to set up, marketing automation? I have just written a blog on this, actually, and one of my main factors with or concerns with setting up marketing automation campaigns is often we tend to focus so much on the technical aspect of it that we actually forget about the whole purpose of the program itself. And therefore we lead with the technology and what the features that you can do with the technology rather than leading with the strategy. And this is what we need to do, is make sure that this is where the difficulty comes into it. Isn't necessarily in setting it up, like I said. ESPs like Get Response have made it so that it's easy to set these programs up. Really, really easy. But the hard bit is to actually identify the message, identify what it is that you're wanting to be achieving with this, and making sure that you're going to be delivering it within it. The difficulty is, instead of creating one email, you have to create maybe 6 emails, right? And they all have to make sense, and they all have to be working towards, building upon and working towards one specific major objective. Now, when I say it's difficult, it's not difficult as in you can't do it. It's difficult, as in it just means a little bit more effort from you than you would normally do when you're creating an email. That's all, okay? And a bit more time. But, the actual putting it together, the ESPs have got a down pat. So, check out Get Responses system. Make it as easy as to actually deliver it. But you can only be delivering it and enabling your strategic plan to come to light once you've actually created that strategic plan. Yeah. Of course. Okay. So Patricia, all of my emails are in Spanish. Can I test wording in a different language? Absolutely. Absolutely. So if what I'm thinking you're saying, so you're just saying you want to be testing different Spanish, phrase A in Spanish versus phrase B in Spanish. Absolutely. I can't see how you'd be meaning anything else. Okay, Ronald, another question. I want to sell books, electronic and print. How would I, or what would I test? Oh, there's so many things that you could be testing there, seriously. So we're talking books. You can be testing, go to Amazon first of all and see what they do, okay? Amazon are brilliant at the bundling. Remember I was saying one of the things you can be testing is bundling. So you can be testing the bundling as well. So not only they're interested in that, but other people who are also interested in that or bought that book also bought these books as well. So they're the recommendations. You can be testing that. You can be testing the personalization. Or maybe you just want to be testing buy 3 books for 2, right? So that's also bundling. You can be testing the subject lines, all the regular things, just the call to actions, the phrases, the wording, the imagery. Should you just be having a picture of a photo of the book and what it looks like, or should you have someone sitting there reading the book with the title being visible that we can actually see that they're reading that specific book, right? All of these are things that you can be just go crazy and think about what you can do. The next step then is to look at them and go, okay, what is going to help me to increase my conversions? What do I want to find out about my audience? So again, if we go back to that imagery one, if we actually did a test and we said, here's a photo of a book, right? And we can see the title, and versus here's a photo of a person sitting in a nice comfy lounge reading that book. And by the way, that person there would be also have their line of sight would be looking at the call to action as well. So what we would do is we would be testing one image versus the other image. And if we found out that it was the person sitting there reading the book, for example, well, then we could be having that also definitely on the landing page, on your product page, all the rest of it. So that's the kind of thing we want to make sure that we're not just using these results, coming up with the results and finding out, okay, so that gives us an idea of what we need to be using within an email, but we can also then start to use that elsewhere as well. So Angie has just asked a question. Marketing automation seems to be very impersonal because it's a mechanism. Is it possible to be more humane with automation? Angie, I've actually written a blog and it's on the Automation Hub website, and it's talking about this exact topic. So what this is all about is, yes, it is just a trigger and everything, but the bottom line is that we're human and we are setting up these triggers. We are writing the copy. We are putting the imagery in. We're getting that subject line happening. We're making that call to action punchy and wonderful. So we're bringing the humanness in. Not only that, but a lot of marketing automation programs are actually implemented because they're based upon a touch point that the recipient, the subscriber, the customer, have actually triggered themselves, right? So it's based upon an action or an inaction. Therefore, that's a human element as well. So we can be conversational. Just because it's a triggered one, which we know is automated, doesn't mean that they don't know that someone is there just sending it. I can't imagine there's too many people, but if you do a great job, maybe some people will be thinking, oh, that's nice. you know, Kath has just sent me an email. Wow, okay, that's pretty timely. So that you can have that it's all to do with the wording. Just because it's being triggered and sent by technology doesn't mean we have to be very bland with our and functional with our copy or anything. It's all to do with the tone of voice and the imagery and how we can be doing that. And we can overcome that limitation, absolutely. And we'll turn it into a strength. So it's no weakness. So I think that's it for questions.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time too. So let me just go back to the presentation. So thank you all so much for coming here today. Thank you, Kath, for being here with us. I'm sure all of you have learned a lot today, and I'm sure have learned a lot about marketing automation optimization, which is not such an easy task as you may think at first. Really appreciate you coming here. As we said beforehand, the webinar recording will be sent to you via email, the one that you used to register for today. And thanks again, Kath. Thank you all for coming here today, and speak to you soon.